Welcome to Wisdom from the Aerial View, the podcast for those who wish to crush their anxiety and to find meaning and purpose in their lives. Hi, Dr. Klein. How are you doing today?
Hello, Enid. So good to see you as always.
It's good to see you. I have to tell our listeners that you wrote me an email and said, this is what I want to talk about. Usually you know that I throw out a topic and you know nothing about what we're going to talk about, but you read a book that you really were enamored with and you wanted to talk about it. It was called In My Time of Dying by Sebastian. I don't know if he pronounces it Junger or Junger. Is it Junger? Junger?
I think it's Younger, but I wouldn't swear by it.
Yeah,
it could be Junger. We should find that out.
We should find that. In fact, I was going to look that up, but I didn't because I was too busy doing other things. But I will tell you that the name of the book said to me, that's interesting, In My Time of Dying. I will admit to you that I didn't read it. I had no time to read it. Too busy reading Little Women. Kidding. But I was thinking about that title sounded familiar to me. And why did it sound familiar? Because in 1962, Bob Dylan recorded a song that was a traditional gospel blues song. It was written in 1927. And it was called In My Time of Dying. And it goes, well, in my time of dying, don't want nobody to mourn. All I want for you to do is take my body home. Lord, in my time of dying, don't want nobody to cry. All I want you to do is take me when I die. So it's interesting that he wrote a book, the title of which sounded familiar to me. But let me begin by reading something that you sent to me.
I just want to let everybody know that you were not alive in 1927.
Oh, yeah, I was. I was born a year after. I look pretty good for my age.
For
my age of death.
Right.
But you sent me a couple of passages from the book, and I want to read one to start this with because I found it fascinating. He says in the book, death annihilates us so completely that we might as well have not lived. But without death, the life we did live would be meaningless because it would never end. One of the core goals of life is survival. The other is meaning. Let's talk about that. First, why this book? Why are you so interested in this book? And what about it makes you really want to talk about it?
As you know, I like to say that death is the greatest clue to the purpose of life. I'm convinced of that. Because one of the things in that quote you just read is that, death erases everything or something like that, as if we didn't live, which is, of course, in one sense, completely true. Because all of a sudden you're not on any more of the records in the jukebox of time. Somebody searches that record. Hey, that person's not here anymore. What happened? Oh, you got to go back 5 records. That was the last time they were on a record in the jukebox of time. So in a sense, you are erased. Of course, the flip side of that is that you have all those records, all those moments of life are going on forever, as we've discussed ad nauseum in this podcast. But it's very, very true and very, very important. And so the question is, the other part of this is meaning, right? So that's the other thing we talk about every week here, meaning. Yeah. So he was surprised by his near-death experience. So that sounds crazy. Everybody's surprised by their near-death experience. But he was surprised what it did to him. He was surprised what he learned from it. He was surprised by his reaction to it, which went on for quite a while, by the way, when you read the book. It's a relatively short book. I read it in 2 sittings. I really didn't want to put it down. And it's a quick book to go through. But his reaction to this wasn't necessarily that I have to live every moment of my life from now on and pay careful attention. Because I think, he got some of that from that, which most people have when they have a brush with death. But it was even more that he got very introspective. He got depressed for a while about it because it's very frightening. We'll talk about what his actual experience was and why he felt that way. But, he was just so moved by the whole thing, not only in sense of his potential mortality, but what it did to bring all of the world, not just life, but all of the world into a new perspective for him. Of course, what else do we talk about here? The aerial view and perspective, right? So it was all these themes kind of woven into one book by a very excellent writer and a very smart guy. This guy has lived an amazing life. He's been a war correspondent. He's taken risks that you and I would never even think of taking. He's written a bunch of really good books. One probably most famous is The Perfect Storm,
right,
which then became that famous movie. So this guy's a very smart guy, an accomplished guy, a deep thinker, a man of many, many life experiences. So when somebody like that has an experience like this and writes about it, it's worth reading and worth paying attention to.
So don't leave me in the dark here. What happened?
Oh, we're out of time. I'm sorry, Enid. I'll see you next week.
I can see you. Have a good life. Go ahead. And now I'll sing. Okay.
Yeah. So his experience was as follows. It's a very interesting medical condition, which I'll spend a minute on because I can't help it. I'm a doctor. He had something called median arcuate ligament syndrome. Because that means, what does that mean? So we have the big blood vessel that runs through the middle of our body that takes the blood from the heart down to our abdomen and to our lower extremities is called the aorta, the abdominal aorta. It's a big fat artery, and you don't want to cut that one because that's the end of that. But it also has arteries coming off it, like a highway that has exits. So take a 95 or some big highway, you can get off in exit 8 in New Jersey. You have little exits, and some of the exits are pretty big, and some of them are pretty small. So there's a major exit called the celiac artery, celiac axis is actually called, that comes off the aorta just under your ribs. And that feeds the blood, that delivers blood to your stomach and to your spleen and to your liver and to part of your upper digestive tract. It's really important. So there's also this little fibrous thing called the ligament that comes down right in front of it. And normally it's no big deal. But sometimes the angle that the ligament creates can literally squash this celiac artery as it's coming off the aorta. So it kind of puts a kink into it, and blood can't flow. When blood can't flow through an artery, whether it's this one or in our heart, very common in coronary arteries, you develop what are called collaterals, meaning alternative pathways for the blood to go. So it has to go somewhere, and it's very clever. So the body creates these collateral pathways, meaning small arteries become bigger, veins sometimes are involved, certainly capillary beds, but basically different arteries take over the workload. So it's like if 95 is closed, all of a sudden, all the local US 1 gets crowded, all the local streets get crowded, and that's kind of what happens there. It's like when the highway is blocked, the cars have to go somewhere, so they find created alternative routes through neighborhoods, whatever. So that's what happens. So in this guy's case, one of the arteries that got enlarged was called the pancreatic artery, and easily it's the artery that supplies the pancreas, and it gets fed through a very convoluted loop of additional arteries. So when that pancreatic artery, which wasn't used to getting a lot of blood, over time got more and more blood, and there was a weakness in the wall. And eventually that weakness developed into what's called an aneurysm, kind of a weakness of the wall, swelling, and eventually it popped. And now he's bleeding into his abdomen, right? So he's losing blood. He doesn't know it. So what happens? You get lightheaded, obviously, and all kinds of crazy things happen to your physiology because your body is doing all it can to keep you alive. So it diverts blood from everywhere it can to make sure your heart and your brain and your kidneys, those are the primary organs you really want to keep going. So it will sacrifice a lot of stuff to keep the brain and the heart and the arteries going and the kidneys going. So the part of the story is what's going on is he's experiencing this, not knowing what's happening to him. And of course, he lives in the middle of nowhere. He's not like down the street from a major medical center. He's I think he's in Maine. He's in the middle of Maine, somewhere like that. He's in the middle of nowhere, right? Basically. So the first part of the story is how he gets, they get him to the hospital. And then the second part of this is they start working on him. And this is a super complicated thing to treat. So they open his abdomen. They can't figure it out. Long story short, they managed to get what's called a catheter into a blood vessel and do something called embolization, where you put in these little coils and you block the blood flow. And eventually, after hours and hours and hours of this, it worked. And that's why he's around to write the book. But what happens in that time period when he's in the hospital? So he looks to one side of him and he sees the doctors and the nurses and everybody working. And he looks to the other side of him and he sees a black pit that he's about to fall into. And in fact, at one point he says to the doctors, "You're losing me. Hurry up. You're losing me." Because he feels himself falling into the black pit. The other thing that happens is he looks up and he sees his father. His father was a scientist, a very secular guy, but super smart guy, physicist, very, very intelligent. And his father did not necessarily believe in religion, but he couldn't explain a lot of things. Just said to his son, to Sebastian, there are things you just can't explain with science, and we'll leave it at that. He looks up, he sees his father, and his father's saying to him, "Look, come with me. I'll take care of you. I got you. It's going to be okay." Right? So that was his iteration of the near-death experience. He has this feeling. He's talking to his father. He sees his father. He's awake. He's not comatose. He's awake. He's able to hear and talk to the doctors. And he sees that black pit. So he's not unconscious at this point. He's still conscious, barely, but he's conscious. So this is important because he's not in a coma and he's having this, what could be called a hallucination, whatever. He's awake. And so for him, this is an incredibly moving experience. So he survives. And afterwards, he goes through this period of he's a little depressed. He's just flummoxed by the whole idea. He's confused. He doesn't just bounce back and go, hey, I think I'll write another book. This has had a major effect on him. And eventually he does write this book, about 4 years later, something like that.
And it's interesting. Now, the father was dead, right? His father wasn't really
Oh, yeah.
there.
Father was long dead.
And
Yes.
so there's a piece in the book on how only people who are about to die, and it's kind of curious, and it talks about, in fact, I wrote myself a little note about that. Why do the dying, and only the dying, keep seeing the dead in the last days of our lives? It's very interesting that his father was dead, yet he saw his father and talked to them. So why during that period, as they're about to die, or in this case he didn't die, are we seeing dead people? And I don't mean to sound like a movie, but let's discuss that. That was very fascinating. What is that all about?
Well, let me just preface it, but nobody really knows what this is all about.
Right.
But there are a zillion theories. People have
Yeah.
written extensively about this for over 100 years. This is not a new idea. So there's a couple of interesting things. Now, we can separate this into the people that think that there's something else going on, whether it be God, heaven, an afterlife, whatever, something else. And those people go, no, this is just science. It's chemistry. It's neurochemistry. This is to be expected. So you have these two camps, right? But nobody has the answer. So what's very interesting, though, is that these experience of seeing somebody, usually a family member, it could be a parent, it could be a sibling, it could be somebody else who you're close to, who you see them just in that period when you're hovering on death. Now, some people are actually clinically dead. They have no heartbeat. They're being resuscitated. But so the one thing they do is they see these other people in their lives who are motioning to them or talking to them and saying, look, it's going to be okay. Come with me. I got this. You're going to be all right. And it's cross-cultural. It doesn't matter whether this could be in any language. It could be in any part of the world. There is a subset of people. Most people who have near-death experiences most people who are near death in a situation like this do not have what we call near-death experiences. They don't experience floating above the bed and seeing people. They don't experience seeing dead people. They don't experience it, and most people don't. But a subset does. It's obviously we have no idea why that subset does and why the others don't. There are lots of theories about that, but nobody knows. But the ones that do experience it, they have so many commonalities across cultures, across religions, across ethnicities. I mean, it's like really crazy, right? And the other thing, so some people, again, see dead people or specific dead people, usually parents, close relatives, siblings, something like that. The other thing is, you've heard this before, people feel like they have an out-of-body experience. They're hovering over the bed. They can listen to the doctors and the nurses and technologists talking as if they're at this point generally comatose. They're generally not awake like Sebastian was. They're generally out of it. They're unresponsive, but yet they're very wide awake in this view in their head where they're watching it. Some people have described, this is also pretty weird, they describe conversations that occur in a waiting room. So they're in a surgical room or a resuscitation room in the hospital, and several rooms away with walls, multiple walls between them, there might be a family member, somebody sitting and crying or talking or something, and they can see from their position, their perspective above the bed. Not only can they hear the doctor and nurses, they can see and hear the conversation rooms away. And this has been confirmed in certain situations that, yeah, they do. Now, nobody knows how this happens. Nobody knows why. But these experiences they've happened so many times, literally millions of times. It's not like there are 5 people in the world who've seen this, right? It's not like somebody saw a statue and they saw the statue move and the Virgin Mary speak to them.
Yeah.
This is way different. This has happened probably millions of times. I don't know about millions, but many, 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 many times all over the world. A lot of these common themes. So the neuroscientists who were the pure scientists or skeptics, whatever you want to call them, legitimately say, look, the brain does this to at the end because it wants to be protective and it's a hallucination. It's a comforting hallucination, blah, 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 blah. They have all kinds of scientific explanations. but at the end of it, they're going to say, but we don't know. And the people on the other side are going to say, look, this happens in all cultures all over the world. Come on, the stories are so similar. How do you just write this off? And then, to be honest, they also have to say, but maybe the scientists are right. Maybe this is all biochemical, because there are certain experiences that you get similarly when you take certain psychedelics, whether it be mushrooms or something else. Now, here's what I thought is very cool. So the scientists would say, well, you see this, and that's kind of sort of proof that you can simulate these things just by taking drugs. So the drugs are altering the chemistry in your brain, the neurochemistry in your brain. And so that's what's happening in your death. You have, there's hypoxia, so you're short of oxygen. So I'll use regular. You're short of oxygen. Your acid base levels are way out of whack. You get what's called very acidic. All these things are happening in your body, and therefore you're getting these chemical reactions in the brain, just like you would if you took a certain psychedelic drug. And so we can see that's what the brain's doing. And you go, okay, well, that makes sense, except for one thing. The one thing that I would say to that is that it depends how you look at the brain and the human body. If you look at the brain and the human body, that everything is contained within it, meaning there is no greater force, there is no higher power, there is no God, whatever you want to call it. It's all contained in this human form. It's mostly situated in the brain, but not all, because there are hormones all over the place that are coming from all over the place that have an action. But let's just for practical sake, just say it's centered in the brain. And therefore, all these things that are happening are occurring in the brain. So the science would say, yes, that's of course. These chemicals are being released, similar to a drug-induced stupor or state. And this is what happens, and it's totally explainable. But the other way to look at it is to say, well, it's not all incorporated in the human brain or the human body. The human body is like a machine. And so, of course, it's going to react to these stimuli and to these situations, and so anything we evaluate is going to be evaluated through the way the brain functions, but there still is an outside force or another power or a soul or whatever you want to call it that is acting through this organism. So it can only act through the organism. So if the brain isn't working or it's doing something, it's going to act that way. It can't help it. It cannot supersede the entity or the vessel, if you want to call it, in which it is. So it doesn't answer the question, right? You're still stuck. Are these near-death experiences some type of window into another world, the afterlife, whatever comes next? What do you want to call it? A higher power, the essence of the universe, whatever, all these things. Or is it not? Or is it just chemistry? And at this point, it remains a completely unsolvable problem. And then it becomes people's feelings and opinions, and that's where we are right now. And we might be that way. I'm not sure we're ever going to solve this.
No, one would assume it would always be insolvable. How would it ever solve it? Because we don't know when you're gone, right? I mean, I don't know.
Well, we don't know what we don't know. So maybe there'll be some scientific discoveries or something with AI, or who knows? You don't know. You don't know. But
let me ask you. So he talks very much about that. This whole experience taught him about the other meaning of life, which is to find meaning. So what was the outcome? What did he find was his meaning? Because I'm assuming this happened in what period of time? After he did all that exploring, or when?
Oh yeah, this happened around COVID time.
Okay.
And he wrote the book 4 years later.
So
the book came out 4 years later.
So what then did he decide was his meaning? Was he realizing that what he was doing before was not his meaning, but now? Okay, tell me about that.
I don't think he has that. From my reading of it, and I think I sent you the notes, right? But that I took. But at no point did he say, "Aha, I have figured it out."
Yeah, right.
Right. It's like he just makes him think more and appreciate things more and understand that there may be more to the world than we see. So you know how I always say this: the world is not what you think.
Yes.
And I think what happened to him is that I think at the end of this he goes, "Holy crap, the world is not what we think. This is bizarre. What does it mean? I don't know. I'm not sure." But it just, to him, it raises all these concepts. That's why he did all this research. So so a lot of things I'm quoting, he went out and said, okay, I got to find out more about this. So we talked to people who had near-death experience. He talked to psychologists. He talked to neuroscientists. He talked to all these people. I mean, he was really digging in to figure this out. And I don't think he doesn't walk away with, aha, this is why we're here. This is the whole thing. Unlike a simpleton like me who says, well, I'll tell you why I think we're here. He doesn't really do that, right? To his credit, perhaps. But he raises all these questions, and it just had a profound effect on him. Why do we meet people? You asked the question, why do we meet people who are important to us at the time of our death? What's it all about? So I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth. Another one of those guys I'd like to meet and talk to. So far, none of these people have called me. I don't understand it. But anyway.
Well, they've called me, and I won't put them through to you. So, but I have a wonderful conversation.
I don't blame you. That is a wise decision.
Yeah.
But I think, so he doesn't have answers. He has questions, but it clearly moved him. I think for him, like everybody else, it's like, there's more going on. You got to pay attention.
Yeah.
And, he had, because here's the other thing. One of his good friends was killed I think they were in Afghanistan, another reporter. And this clearly had an effect on him. And he was feeling guilty that why him, not me. A lot of the people go through that kind of thing who have been in those situations. Yeah. But this put everything in a little bit of perspective. I think the finite nature of life, right?
Yeah.
What each of these experiences means in our life, what each moment is worth, that each moment counts. I think when you go through something like this, it just, if you haven't been thinking about it before, you're going to think about it then. And some people, it changes their life completely. I think for somebody like him, it clearly had a huge impact. I guess he will never see the world the same. I'm sure of that, in a positive way. I mean, for him, I don't think it was a negative. It was a negative experience at first because it just shook him to the core. But I think, and again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I do think this just opened the world to him a little bit more and saw that, God, there's it appears that there's something going on. He lived it. He experienced it. He felt it. For him, it was extremely real. I don't think for him, the explanation that it's just, science gone wild and it's just a chemistry experiment and it's just, drug induced. I don't think that would fly with him. I think for him, it was so personal and so real. And he was still conscious that he sees it a different way.
But there's another line in the book that struck me. And he said, even when we are with people we love, we are alone. That's a very interesting line. Even when we're with people we love, we're alone. What did he mean by that?
Okay, that's a great line because, and you've heard me talk about this, that even though most of it, we need other people in our lives. No man is an Ireland, John Donne. We need other people. We all know we need other people. But when you look at this life, it is a solo journey, right? People will come in and out of your life, hopefully mostly for positive, some obviously for negative ways, but people will come into your life and go out of your life. You will interact with lots of people in lots of situations, but at the end, it's a solo journey. It's yours. You have to make it what you can. You have to learn what you can. You have to produce what you can, deliver what you can. It's up to you. I think that's what his sense was from this, but it is true. It is true. No man is an island, but in the end of the day, it's your journey. It's yours. You can't, I tell parents this all the time. You can't live your kid's life. We worry about our kids and and we think, oh God, what's going to happen? And I've certainly done my share of that. I'm still doing it. But I have to stop myself and realize, okay, everybody has to live their own life, not just because it's their own life, because it's their journey. It's their mission. It's a big deal. They were put on this earth for an opportunity to see what they could learn, to prepare for what's come next. You can't do that for them. They must do that. And I think one of the things he sensed in this is that, wow, I am on my own. This is mine and mine alone to deal with. I'll need help. I'll help other people. But at the end, it's mine to deal with. So I think that's what he's saying, which I think is 100% true.
Yeah. And you're always talking about, and you stress this all the time, it's in your book, about the most important thing in our lives are relationships. And yet, in the end, we're alone.
Well, the relationship,
we're alone, right?
Yeah, but the relationships mold who we are, and they allow us to give. Right? Remember, one of the feelings, and we talk about that, I think, is that we're here to give. We're here to help as many people as we can. That's a relationship, right? So, so I don't want to confuse people. Relationships are the most important thing in life, but it's your life, right? It's your life that's you who are having these relationships, who are interacting with people, who are giving and taking from these relationships. In the end, it's what you do yourself. And when he's in a situation like that, you realize, I'm alone here. Then he's about to die, and he sees his dad who's saying, okay, I'll come help you. Come with me. But he had that sense, this is me. I'm it. That's all there is at this point, right? So the two go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive.
You know, it's interesting how we are afraid to discuss death. We're afraid of death. And yet, one of the all-time, I mean, in 1969, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote On Death and Dying. Very popular book. A scary book because people don't want to think about death and they don't want to think about dying. But she talked about the 5 stages of grief and all of that. I mean, I'm wondering why, first of all, why are we afraid of death? And why are we afraid to talk about it? You're not. You want to talk about it all the time. So which leads me, why this book? Why did you decide to read this book? And not only did you decide to read it, you said to me, you got to read this book. Why? Why this book? What about this book made you read it?
So a very close friend of mine, who he and I share a perspective. Well, we don't share a perspective on the world because he thinks I'm sort of crazy, and I keep saying eventually you're going to come around and buy into what I'm telling you because it's going to turn out to be true. But we laugh about it. But in terms of our views of life and how to treat people and so on, we're very similar, and we have similar likes and dislikes. So he sends me an email. He goes, "Hey, you got to read this book." He said, "I read it in no time." He said, "You got to read this book. I think you're going to like it." Because he listens to the podcast every week, so he's going to hear this at some point. And I said, okay, when he says you're going to like this book, then I know I'm going to probably like the book because we like similar stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, some people tell me, oh, you got to read this book. And I go, okay, I'll read it, but I don't think I'm not confident I'm going to like it. And most of the time, I'm right. But if you find people who, give an example. If you go to a restaurant and somebody says, you need to order this, and they're like carnivorous, you're going to look at them and go, well, I don't eat meat, and I don't have some of the same taste. So it's thank you for caring about me, but I'm not going to take your recommendation because I know we don't like the same things. Or if you have a friend who has the same diet as you, Enid, and says, oh, I found this restaurant, the salads are unbelievable, you'll pay attention and you might go eat a salad at that place. So it's the same thing here. So when he says, you're going to like this book, I read the book. And that's how it got to it. And of course, then I said, you have to read this book.
I know, and I will read the book. I will read it.
It's a short read. It's really good.
Yeah.
But that's how it happened.
Tell me, give me something in the book that we haven't discussed that you really want to talk about. I know you took a lot of notes. You even sent me some of your notes, which I think is terrific. You take notes on things. I think that's great. What was your lasting impression of this whole thing? Did it sort of solidify your view that we are here for a purpose and that we have to figure out what it is? What is it preparing us for?
You know, it's not so much that. I was kind of look at my notes if there's anything else specifically that I wanted to add, because I know we don't have a lot of time left, so I don't want to waste everybody's time with this. But I would say it's just the reason it appealed to me is because it jives with my view of the world. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, it really sounds kind of cheap and silly, but he doesn't come to any conclusions. I come to conclusions, but he doesn't necessarily. But a discussion of this topic of death and what happens after is very appealing to me, as you know. So you say, why do I like to talk about death, and why are people afraid of death? So it's not that I like talking about death. I'm not afraid of death. We've talked about this. I'm just a teeny bit curious, but I can wait. I'm not in a hurry, right, of what happens. But the reason I don't worry about death is the same stupid comment I make to my friends. And I say to them, do you have lunch every day? Do you have lunch most days? And they go, yeah, of course I have lunch. I go, okay, well, do you make a big deal out of lunch? They go, no, of course not. I go, why don't you make a big deal out of lunch? He goes, well, everybody has lunch. I go, well, everybody dies. So what are you making such a big deal out of it? It can't be that big a deal. And I don't mean to minimize this. It's a big deal when people are young. It's a big deal when people are die of trauma or, murdered or attacked a lot of times it's always sad. You lose somebody you love. It's always sad. So I don't mean to say it's not sad when we lose people. Of course it is. You can lose a pet and you're mortified. You just can't function. So, and we've been through this. So yeah, loss is sad, but then you have to take it in perspective. It was always going to be Nobody or no thing lives forever. This is a temporary adventure. So don't worry about the death part. It's coming for everyone. It's what you do while you're here that counts. So I've seen many people do, this is especially true of very rich people. They'll do anything they can to stay alive. Why? They got a lot to live for, right? They have multiple houses and, all kinds of things going on. And they go, I'm going to do every test I can to stay alive. And I get that. But no matter how many tests they do, of course, the end's going to come. And so it's what you do while you're here. It's not do everything you can to live as long as you can. It's do whatever you can to make your life the most meaningful. How do you do that? Become a person of substance. Then what do? Then you help as many people as you can. So I'll tell you, almost every day, and I haven't practiced medicine. I shouldn't say that. I'm still doing medical things, as you know, with my new venture, but I don't see patients like I used to. I see a few, but I don't see patients like I used to, right? So my life has changed in that regard. But every day, I either check on or get phone calls from numerous people who have either medical questions or who I have trying to help or have helped or want to follow every day, right? So to me, I have a little list in my head. I go, did I forget anybody today? Because I want to try and remember as best as I can. But the point is, that's what I believe I'm here to do. I'm here to be helpful in any way I can to as many people as I can. And that's the point of death. That's why death is the number one clue. It's telling you, the clock is ticking, the gun, but the starting gun went off a long time ago, and you're going to get to the finish line at some point. You don't know where, you don't know when, you don't know the circumstances, but you're going to get there for sure. So that's the message of death. The message of death is live a meaningful life.
That's beautiful. I look at the clock and I see that
oh goodness.
We are, yeah. So I'm going to just read what I thought would be a great closing, and then I'll let you obviously have the final word. In the book, he says, we're all on the side of a mountain, which is amazing, shocked by how fast it's gotten dark. The only question is whether we're with people we love or not. There's no other thing, no belief or religion or faith. There is just that. Just the knowledge that when we finally close our eyes, someone will be there to watch over us as we head out into that great soaring night. Final word, Doc.
Yeah, I would say that I'm not worried about that part. I don't think I see what he said. His dad was there when he was about to pass away. I get how he feels. I look at it a little differently. I wouldn't worry about that. Don't worry about the people who are going to be there or not going to be there. I don't think that's necessarily the issue. The issue is do what you can while you're here. Be the best person you can be. Help as many people as you can. The rest will take care of itself. With
that, with those wonderful parting words, again, the name of the book is In My Time of Dying, and I hope that everybody got as much out of this today as I did. Thank you, Doc. Have a good week.
Thank you, Enid. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Yes, we'll see you next time.
Peace.